welcome to worship this morning. Glad you're here. As you're willing, as you're able, would you stand and sing a couple songs of worship with us today? And before we get started, let's just take a moment and grab a calming, centering breath. We all have different places we're coming from. We've all been different places through the week, but here at church as a community, we can come together and we can find our collective place of prayer and reflection. And so just take a moment to slow the breath and bring the attention to the present moment.
God. Oh.
touch your church. Every one of us needs you, God. Yeah, we need you, God. We need you, God. We need you, come and heal our broken hearts. We need you, God. We need you, God. We need you, come and heal our broken hearts. We need you, God. We need you, God. We need you, come and heal our broken hearts. We need you, yeah, we need you right here, right now. Even when I'm at my worst, I am still a righteous birth, covered by your saving grace, past, present, future, dead erase. My heart is changing day by day, by day, by day, day by day, by day. When I run like wildfire, I am still a ransomed child, born with blood spilled on the tree. Sin dead, you have no hold on me. My will is changing day by day, by day, by day, day by day, by day. I'm not who I was. Now I am who I am, a sinner saved, a stumbling saint. Still never alone. You're alive in my bones, the ghost of God. You're sanctified. Day by day, by day, day by day, by day, day by day, by day. You're changing my heart, Jesus. What I once desired for is not what I desire more. Heart of stone turned into flesh, love, joy, peace taking over the mess. It's all I'm wanting day by day, by day, by day, day by day, by day. And I'm not who I was, no, no. Now I am who I am,
Good morning, church. How y'all doing? Y'all may be seated. My name is Marco. I'm one of the core leaders here at Meizon, and we're going to enter in a time of communion. Just let you know that our communion is open for all people. You don't have to be a member of the church. You know, if you feel inclined to come and take communion with us, feel free to do so. Our communion is also gluten-free for people that can't have gluten, and so we're trying to make sure that everyone can take it that wishes to participate in taking it. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to take communion, you're going to come up the aisle. You may take it here at the table, or you may take it back to your seat, and I'll take it there. Once we are done with communion, the kids may join Miss Kylan in the back for Meizon Kids. And so let's go ahead and get started. We welcome all to the table. We welcome all people to the table as the Lord welcomes us. For this is the table not of the church, but of the Lord. It is made ready for those who love him and those who want to love him more. So come, you have much faith, and you who have little. Come, you who have been here often, you who have not been here long. You who have tried to follow, and you who have failed, come. Because it is the Lord that invites you. It is his will that those who want to meet him should meet him here. Please join me with the words in yellow. God, we confess that we have sinned against you in thought, word, and deed, by what we have done and what we have left undone. We have not loved with all our heart, have not loved our neighbors as ourselves. We are truly sorry and humbly repent. Christ, have mercy on us and forgive us, that we may delight in your will and walk in your ways. To glory of your name, amen. In the name of Jesus Christ, your sins are forgiven. Please come to the table.
In light of your Son, I find it's not what I've done, for you have overcome. Grace I couldn't afford, your love has opened the door. Now my hope is secure. Church, would you rise and sing with us as you're willing, as you're able? In the light of the door, my praise will go wherever you'll be my soul. Love I couldn't deny, you have opened my eyes, brought me into your life. You are faithful, always faithful to me. eyes I don't see, my heart will believe you're the maker of all things, God. Faith has a hold on my view, my understanding renewed, and you're the hope I cling to. You are faithful, always faithful to me, faithful to me. As surely as the morning sun will rise, faithful to me. But my strength is weak. Oh, my strength is weak. Still you are strong. You're faithful to me. All your ways are true. You fail me not. You're faithful to me. Merciful God, we thank you for this opportunity to come and grow together in your grace and in your love. We ask that you remind us the grace and forgiveness that you have for us, even in the moments when we are unable to make the choices that help and show love to those around us. Even in times of loss and grief and greed, we ask that you just remind us that your light shines no dimmer. And we thank you again for this day and this chance to come together. And we thank you for the church and for today's message and the opportunity to worship in your name. All this we pray in your heavenly name, your holy and strong name. Amen.
Hi, and welcome to Meizon. My name's Miranda, and I'm the operations pastor. And if you happen to be listening on the podcast, you probably can't see that I am dressed a little bit different than normal. I've been out at the medieval fair the last weekend, and I have missed worshiping with you guys, and I am looking forward to being back with you next weekend. If you have your phone, I'd love for you to go ahead and pull it out right now and go ahead and go to meizonchurch.com, where you can find our digital connect card. If you'll click on that, fill it out, say hi, you can tell me what a silly outfit I have. I'm looking forward to seeing all of those connect card responses. So one of our compassion partners is Rescue, and Rescue is actually a group, and they are for the health of the company. They help support all of the medieval and Renaissance performers that are out here, especially with medical bills and education on health insurance and things like that. And that's one of our compassion partners. So all the gifts that you give, we take 10% of that and we put it towards our compassion partners. Some of the ways you can give online. You can also give with text to give. You can text the dollar amount to the number 84321. Or if you happen to be in the room with us, you can drop your donations in the boxes in the back. And now we'll have Drake in our series, Losers.
Well, good morning, Meizon. My name is Drake. I'm the teaching pastor here. I'm so excited to see you. And I'm excited to see all the smiling faces in the room and all of the heart reacts on our TikTok live stream as people are watching us. And if you're not watching us live here on Sunday morning, if you're not in the room, you're not on the TikTok live, maybe you're catching us on YouTube or podcast or TikTok later in the week. We're still glad you're here. I understand how tempting it is to sleep in on Sunday morning. If I wasn't a pastor, I would certainly be sleeping in. But we're excited that you're here. And I just want to give one round of applause for our Meizon band this morning. They were fantastic. You could give multiple rounds of applause if you wanted to, but they were really, really good. Excited to see you all, excited that you were able to worship with them. We're in our second to last week of this series, Losers, where we're going through the book of Judges in Scripture. But before I get any further along in the message, I wanted to introduce our guest today, Tom Selleck. He's here to talk to us about reverse mortgages. Yeah, Tom Selleck. No, it's just kidding. It's not Tom Selleck. Tom Edwards, would you introduce yourself, Tom?
Yes, hi. First, I want to say thank you for the invitation from Drake and the congregants to be able to come here today and talk to you all. My name is Tom Edwards, okay? Drake said I look like Tom Selleck, so, that's a reverse mortgage pun. But yes, thank you for the opportunity. I've been coming to this church probably for 10 years. Never once been here on Sunday morning. And probably this is the first time I've been in a church on a Sunday morning, decades possibly, decades. I go on Easter sometimes and Christmas with my wife and son. They're both Catholic. I was raised Episcopal, but I don't practice, So I've been coming here for a long time, never been in this room on a Sunday morning. So this is a first, and I'm really excited about it. The band was terrific. I saw them in here warming up. I mean, they're good. So thank you.
I told them, I said, be here around 9 o'clock, and then I was like, where's Tom? I better call him, I better text him. And then I walked out of my office and walked past the door, and he's just jamming to the worship music in here for half an hour. The band is really fantastic.
Yes.
But Tom, you said you've been coming here for 10 years. I know there are some people who know you in the room, and there are some people who don't know you, and some people who can't see your face and don't understand the Tom Selleck joke.
Yes.
And they're listening on the podcast later in the week, but could you explain what you mean by you've been coming to this church for 10 years?
Well, I'm a member of a recovery program, and I was thinking about this as I was sitting here. I'm not supposed to discuss what the name of that program is in public, okay, and associate myself with it when I am outside of the program. But this church has been kind enough to allow us to participate in your ancillary room over here, that large room right by the kitchen, the ice maker, the constant ice maker. And we're a meditation program, and we study the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I am a recovering alcoholic. And in fact, this is my 11th year of sobriety. And thank you. It's very interesting to see the words up on the screen from the song about grace and the remedy. So, my program is very much focused on spiritual recovery because this is seen as a spiritual malady. And the drinking part of it is really considered a symptom. but really it is a spiritual dearth, a spiritual desert that most of us come into the program with. And I drank for 40 years. And I am, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
I am an attorney by profession, and I do trial work, so I'm used to speaking in front of people, but nonetheless, when I come and I share in front of people that I'm unfamiliar with, and particularly when the group is a group of individuals who are not similarly situated to me, do not suffer from the disease that I suffer from. And there on the screen was, this is the remedy for my disease, okay, that you all were singing to and was being played. And it just struck me how congruous the two programs, this organization, this church, and the program of recovery that I'm involved with, how congruous they are. Because this is also a spiritual program. So, as I said, I'm an attorney by training, and I have my own practice, I have a partner, associates. I've been in this town. I came here in 1977 to go to school. And I was already very familiar with drugs, alcohol, primarily marijuana. Drinking age was 18 when I came up here. So alcohol was readily available, and that's really kind of the college experience, right? But for me, from the beginning, Drake mentioned to me having a beer and how he wouldn't have a beer because he just got done working out. Well, having a beer never made sense to me, ever, okay? One, why? If I'm gonna just have one beer, I might as well just have a glass of iced tea because it tastes better, And so that was never the way that I approached alcohol. Alcohol was always the effect. And the effect that alcohol gave me was to feel really good. 90% of the time, just feel the concerns I had, worries I had, things about living life, all the things that most people who are sober people and navigate life, that was just kind of the halo, if you would, that made things just look a lot better. I can't say that, I came from a divorced family, I can go back into all that history, but it really doesn't explain a lot. It's not an excuse. It is absolutely not an excuse because we all suffer those things. Everyone suffers those things. And I like to say that, the perspective that I've gained, and that's what life is all about for me. It's all about being able to change my perspective, be flexible in my perspective, develop a perspective that helps me to navigate life more successfully. And I like to say that, the world is alcoholic, and some of us just choose to drink as a remedy, all right? And what I mean by that is that in my program, we talk about character defects. Character defects of being selfish, self-centered. That's probably one of the biggest. Because continuing to drink in the face of accumulating consequences and destruction can't be seen as anything other than selfish and self-centered. I would continue to drink no matter what. I would manipulate situations. I had an outward appearance of being very successful, and I was successful. And so as my drinking increased, so did my success. And I mistook self-discipline for control. All right, the idea that I could not drink during the week and go and binge on the weekends and then clean up on Sunday and go back to work on Monday and no one would know the difference except the wreckage I left behind with the people that I cared the most about, my family. Those are the people that saw it the most. And so when I talk about this idea of character defects, I like to look at it like we all suffer from the human condition. Every one of us, we're above ground. There is this human condition. All of the character defects we talk about in my program are the same character defects everybody has. Bad motives, inauthentic, insincere, manipulative. Everybody engages in these behaviors to some extent. But when you were in the position that I was in, being alcoholic, and being alcoholic probably from a very young age, probably I was diagnosed with my then girlfriend in my mid-20s. And I'm like, alcoholic? My dad was alcoholic, okay? I'm not alcoholic. I saw what alcoholism is. I work out, I eat right, I treat people well, I go to school, I take care of responsibilities, kinda. So, how can I be an alcoholic? I'm not sleeping under a bridge, because at the time my mom was supporting me. So it didn't make any sense to me. And I could not envision a life without alcohol. I really couldn't. It was in all my social situations. It was part of the fabric of my life.
There was something that Tom and I were talking on the phone over the last couple of weeks about talking today, and you said it again in kind of your pieces of your story and your soliloquy and what you struggle with and the recovery group that you work with. And one of the things that struck me most powerfully about what Tom said was that despite the outward appearance of success, his life was falling apart. And so as we're talking about, we've been talking through the book of Judges, and we've been talking about losers. And I don't by any means mean to call Tom Edwards a loser, but I do want to kind of compare where Tom was to some of the characters we've been talking about in Scripture. I think a lot of times we look at Samson, or we look at Gideon, or we look at Jephthah, and we only look at their success. And we miss the fact that Gideon was being eaten alive by his distrust in God, that it led him to actually murder other people. That we saw Jephthah be so eaten alive by his misunderstanding of God that he killed his own daughter and had to, grieve and think through that. And then this week we're talking about Samson, who, we think of his story and we think about, the temple collapsed and he killed 3,000 Philistines, or he ripped apart the jawbone of a donkey. Seriously, this is all in the Bible, right? He ripped apart the jawbone of a donkey. If he wouldn't have had his hair cut, but he was successful. He was successful. All these people show outward success, and they all show power. Their careers, for lack of a better word, their judges' careers were actually going really strong. They were leading the people of Israel to a place where Israel felt more in control of the situation. But yet, their life on the inside was falling apart. And Tom, you shared that with me, and I thought that's really, really good. And I was kind of hoping maybe you would kind of go into, what was the thing? What got you from saying, hey, I'm not an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. I don't struggle with that. I'm successful, to he's really humble, but he leads the recovery program that meets here during the week. And he's an advocate for recovery programs in the state of Florida and across the country for professionals. So he's a really humble guy, but I don't want to play down his impact on our community and how important he is to so many people. And he's probably sitting in there. We all know somebody who doesn't want to hear that because they're like, oh no, because he's a down to earth guy. But seriously, his impact is huge. And so what was the thing that led you from kind of to understanding the impact of alcohol on your life and then wanting to serve and impact the lives of others in a positive way?
First I have to say that I appreciate what Pastor Drake is saying, and humility hasn't always been my strong suit at all. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and my character defects of being an egomaniac with an insecurity complex really was fed by the area of law that I went into. And I've learned humility through grace, through other people, through understanding that that's the only way that I can learn. And although I come in and I do a lot of service work, there are no real leaders. Drake is the spiritual leader of this congregation, but without all of you, there is no congregation. So you might as well just be speaking to the walls, But it is a collective, it is a fellowship, and the strength that we get is from our ability to be rigorously honest. And that is something that is completely lacking, when I walk out the door. Then I have on, another face, I have on, and this idea that to be rigorously honest is to me, the linchpin, is the foundation. And to answer Drake's question, Drake's been asking me to come here for a while, and I've kind of passed through. I saw the band practicing one day on a Saturday, and I'm like, wow, that's really pretty cool. It's very different. I actually thought I was going to be a priest when I was 10 years old. I felt, that this was going to be my calling, but that's another story. And I digress a lot, okay? That's another issue of mine. I kind of give too much of a backstory. But there was no single event that I can point to, but I can tell you about a lesson in humility. My wife she is not alcoholic. She joined Al-Anon way before I got sober. I started and stopped. Quitting drinking for me was really, until the end, one of the most easy things I could do, because I did it 1,000 times. I quit drinking 1,000 times. And then invariably I started back up, because I had no spiritual foundation. I didn't have a code that I could live by. I did get a DUI though, okay? And I got arrested in my town. I was smeared on the front page, you can still look it up, of the Gainesville Sun. It's the only time I was referred to as prominent, okay? That was, a lot of articles, but I was never, now all of a sudden DUI, now he's prominent. Yeah. Notorious maybe, but got arrested, went through the process, had probation. These are very humbling things. But I also went to a recovery program here, FRC, shortly after that. And I can tell you, I probably never would have made it through probation had I not done that, because my compulsion, my obsession with alcohol, because it is a genetic, behavioral, mental, psychological, and a spiritual malady. It is really a three-pronged malady. And unless you get the spiritual side of it, we talk about the 12 steps, and I think maybe we're going to mention those, but you have a spiritual awakening as a result of working the 12 steps, and many of you, could relate to the steps that are here, and I can look at the steps and I can say today, when I went in detox first for a day or two, because I was that bad. And my wife drugged me there, all right? Drake says, what was the defining moment? Consequences mount. They just start to mount. Relationships. My drinking buddy told me, I'm not drinking with you ever again. And then something happened between us that involved alcohol. And it's the last time I saw him for 10 years. And I went into detox, then I went in, and I was talking, right down the road here at Vista, I was talking to the doctor, and he goes, you need to go into a longer term program. And here's a program over here at Florida Recovery Center that's set up for professionals, and you can go in there, and it's like, yeah, well, I'm different. I'm special. I should have a special kind of program. And that's the way that I was, okay? And they said, well, I said, I'll go. I will go to that program, but I'm not doing that 12-step bullshit. I am not doing that, okay?
Rigorous honesty.
And those were the words that I used. And I told the doctor that, okay, I will go in there. He goes, oh, don't worry. It's not that, yeah, we utilize them, but don't worry, just to get me in the door of the program. And you know what it was? It's this whole ego-driven idea about, I know what it is. It's a religious cult. It's a religious program. I don't want any of that. Here I have my spiritual condition is non-existent, or if it existed, it had no continuity. It had no focus. Contempt, prior to investigation. That is an ego-driven thing. I know you. I know what you mean when you say God, and I don't like it, because of maybe the way that I was raised, the kind of ideas that I was given about religion, the ideas that I had about AA. A lot of God stuff mentioned in those 12 steps. And I'm not unlike anybody else. What I had to learn is I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like every single addict or alcoholic, just like them. I'm not special. I'm not special at all. And I had to learn these things. I had to learn them through other people, that I am an alcoholic. And I can never, ever, ever safely drink alcohol again. And I had to come to grips with that. The spiritual side of it, that has been an evolution. And it is ever evolving for me. It is ever evolving.
And I think it is for everybody in this room, by the way. I think spirituality and religion and Christianity and following the way of Jesus is always evolutionary. Like, at least for me, we every week during our communion, we talk about the ways that we have failed to love God and love our neighbors as ourselves, right? Without our whole hearts. And it's funny because we come here every week and we build each other up to go out and to love people, but it doesn't mean that we don't fail. And it doesn't mean that we're all, that we're not all learning. I mean, if I look back on even just the 100-year history of our church, it's only been recently that I could have been a pastor here. It's only been fairly recently, within the last couple of decades, that Miranda could have been a pastor here, right? I mean, following Jesus and learning how to love people and learning how to be, rigorously honest is something that we all have to learn to do. And I think what you said about, I'm not special and I'm just like everybody else, our mom always told us we were special.
Right.
But if you really think about it, realizing that we're not special and that meaning that we're a part of this world like everybody else, and everybody is struggling and everybody has things they're going through, and that they're no different. I think it actually, when we understand that piece of the human condition and we understand the pieces of our own brokenness, it helps us to love people despite their own brokenness, right? It helps us to serve others. Actually, I have the 12 steps on the screen, and I thought, we could maybe go through those. They go one by one.
Okay, there you go. Okay. That's the way they work.
They go one by one. So if you want to kind of go over those and provide a little bit of commentary, and we'll kind of shoot our way through them for the people who aren't familiar.
Sure. And, I hope that this process is, there's quite a few people in this room, and Chuck just came in. Chuck was one of the first people I met when I started coming here on Saturday mornings, because I open up, and I love you, Chuck. Chuck is a good human being. These steps are guidelines, that it helps us to come to a realization of who we are. And if anything comes out of me being here today, if just one person is able to carry a message to one other person who suffers, because I am confident that there are people in this room who know somebody, either in their immediate family or related or a friend, that suffers from substance use disorder. So, I say that with absolute confidence. The first step is, and the most important step, you can't get anywhere unless you work the first step and it becomes who you are and you have an understanding. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. I was reading something this morning about this. And by the way, I did listen to a podcast while I was working out at the gym last night. Drake was there, I was there, and we didn't see each other, about Samson, because he told me about this. And then Drake tells me, he goes, we're doing this series on losers, And I'm like, all right. That didn't push me away. It didn't push me away because I can tell you, I absolutely felt like a loser at various points in my life. Digression. But that's just to share, because I own that too. Our lives have become unmanageable. Powerlessness over alcohol. I had a hard time with that because I used to think that I was not only the master of my universe, but oftentimes I was the master of yours, and that's just so much ego and such a lack of humility and understanding. But to be powerless over something is a recognition that I'm just not in control. I am just not in control. And what I recognize as I sit here today is that I have so little control over what goes on around me. And this notion that I can control people, places, things, that I can control my son, that I can control my dog, that I can, I can have that kind of impact, gave me such grief and such heartache and such frustration and anger. The recognition that I'm not in charge is huge. Yeah. And the unmanageable part, again, that whole idea of putting on my suit, walking outside, no one would know that over the weekend I was at the toilet, driving the porcelain bus, as they like to say, because I drank so much, I got toxic that I couldn't really stand up. Unfortunately, I didn't really suffer blackouts, so I would tend to remember. And if I didn't remember, somebody could remind me of what I said or did, and it'd be crushing, the embarrassment and the humility of it. When I was young and in college, it was kind of funny. A friend of mine parked his car somewhere, didn't know where it was, called the police, said it was stolen. It's funny. But I carried that behavior on. And then it got to the point where I started to get a reputation as a professional, and I said, I can't do this. And so I started to take my drinking out of town. I was in a position, again, that whole success thing and a God thing. And, I wonder why. And that's again, another story. Grace is an amazing thing.
Amen.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I had a condo over in St. Augustine, and it was supposed to be a family place. It got to the point where my wife would not go, because every time I went there, I would find a way to get alcohol. I would find a way to drink, and I would find a way to mess up a family outing. And so I'd go out of town on the weekends and do my binging, come back into town, put on my suit, and go to work. And people wouldn't see the behavior that I engaged in, or so I thought. So, unmanageable, yeah. On so many levels, the energy that I put into trying to navigate things while I was active in my alcoholism, my life was definitely unmanageable. And getting a DUI, ultimately, I think that tells you a thing or two, but I still wasn't ready even then. The second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You see what I mean about how it dovetails in with, what the teachings are here, with what the message is here. I couldn't restore myself to sanity. I was insane. I was literally, really. You keep doing the same thing over and over, and you expect a different result is the definition of insanity. Consequences don't control my behavior, My wife threatening to leave me doesn't control my behavior.
You're talking about this unmanageableness, and you're talking about insanity. The Bible's insane. Especially the book of Judges. Listen to what Samson does here. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. He did it as easily as if it were a young goat. No, that's so much better. But he didn't tell his father or mother about it. All right, how about this one? Samson said, "This time I cannot be blamed for everything." Sounds like he maybe isn't accountable. Maybe he's not being rigorously honest. "This time I cannot be blamed for everything I am going to do to you Philistines. So the consequences are your fault, they're not mine." Then he went out, listen to this, and caught 300 foxes. And he had a tea party. No. He caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs, and he fastened a torch to each of their pair of tails. Then he lit the torches and let the foxes run through the grain fields of the Philistines. He burned all of their grain to the ground, including the sheaves and the uncut grain. He also destroyed their vineyards and olive groves. Samson's life was unmanageable and out of control. It actually starts, the story of Samson starts with understanding that his mother made a vow that he would serve God. And some of the first things that we see in the Bible is him breaking the vow. In fact, his father says, well, aren't there enough women in our own village, right? Can't you marry somebody who's an Israelite? And he says, no, I want this woman who's out of our town. And that was against their customs and against his vow. And so Samson meets this woman in Timnah, and he goes after her, and he's going to marry her. And then when he's getting ready to marry her, a riddle is given. And, well, get this. He didn't even get to marry her because ultimately his life was out of control and was out of his control. He was so upset that he couldn't marry her that he enacted revenge on her father. And that's really what happened. That fox story I was telling you, he was so furious about what had happened that he killed 30 men, took their belongings, gave their clothing to the men who had solved the riddle, which had been given to him. Samson was so furious about what happened, and he went back home to live with his father and his mother. So his wife had been given in marriage to the man that was supposed to be Samson's best man at his wedding. Wow. Sounds like his life was a little bit unmanageable, maybe a little bit out of control. And I don't want to kind of spoil the end of the story before we get there, but it seems like this entire story over and over again, it's Samson trying to take things into his own hands. And he's not leaning on others, and he's not leaning on God. It's actually not until the end where we see Samson really lean into this, greater power. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what restores him to his sanity right before he dies.
Correct.
Which is, some people, I guess, maybe just don't make it like you did. You know, Samson, it took him until near death before he was able to admit something to God.
That there is a power greater than myself, power greater than all of us. Again, when I told Drake, when he told me that Samson was going to be the backdrop of this, I listened to it. And then this morning I met him. I'm like, wow, Samson had some issues, you know? And I didn't know the story. So I'm not going to ruin the end either. But this idea that I can do it myself, I can fix it myself, I can handle all my problems myself. On the one hand, this message that we're sent in life, especially growing up in this culture, in this country, is self-reliance. Right? You want to, we teach kids to be responsible, be self-aware, be self-reliant. Do that for yourself. And in my life, I kind of took that to an extreme. I can do it all. I will do it all, I can do it all, and I can take control of this. And if you say I'm alcoholic, well, I'm going to show you. I'll stop drinking. And I stop drinking. But of course, then it comes back. What I didn't recognize is that community is essential. Fellowship, like this fellowship, is essential. But the only way it really works is if you have faith in it, you trust in it, and you're willing to be rigorously honest and vulnerable. Yeah. The vulnerability part is a huge part. I don't want to tell anybody I'm weak. I used to see alcoholism as a weakness. Now people are going to think poorly of me, and for me, it was all about image. Andre Agassi, I'm a big tennis player, used to say image was everything. And I believed that. If I look good, the outward side, if I speak well, if I put on enough cologne and I smell good, then outwardly, I'm going to be perceived that way. And I actually did fashion a look for myself. I got fake glasses when I was a public defender for 2 years. That's how I learned my trade, my profession. And I had long hair, corduroy jacket with the patches on the sleeves. And when I went out into private practice and had to sell my wares, as it is, Abraham Lincoln said, attorney's advice is his stock in trade. but people have to be willing and have confidence that you can help them. I cut my hair, changed my clothes, and bought a pair of fake glasses that I still have. These are not fake. I cannot see, okay? So, these are absolutely necessary. But this whole idea of image, just this outward image. But still, even then, I thought I had a code because I'm a good guy. I try to do the right things, but don't get in the way of what I want to do.
Do you think, I mean, I look back at even just this story of Samson, and it could be drawn in all the stories we've talked about over the last several weeks, whether it's Jephthah or Gideon. Samson, I think it's noticed every time he has a problem with something, he acts out in anger and aggression because he wants to take control, because he wants to have power, and he wants people to think of him as a strong person.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of, I mean, he's a judge, right? So being a judge, in the book of Judges, a judge is the person who's the tribal leader of the tribe at the time, and he was the judge. So of course he wanted to maintain power. Of course he wanted to maintain outward image. If he would have just, said, well, yeah, this stinks, and walked away from the situation, like your mom always said, just walk away, right? Your dad always said, just walk away. If he would have done that, then in his mind, he would have lost credibility and lost power. We have the 12 steps all on the screen. So what I want to do is to not keep everybody here for 17 hours.
Right.
I want to actually roll through the steps, and then we'll kind of come back around to some stuff you said.
Let's roll through them. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Let me ask just one quick question. How many people here are ever read the 12 steps? Wow. Okay. Told Drake he had to. Wow, okay. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Very important, right? Who am I? Facing myself, telling, this is who I am. And that's something I never wanted to look at. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. I talked to Drake. It's more of a confessional. This is what I did. Those things that are so painful, so humiliating that I can't tell anybody else. I'm going to tell somebody I trust so I can help to start see who I am, because that's the whole idea. I'm blind to myself. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. We ask God to do that in the next step. Step 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. And that is an exercise in just what it says, the first word, humility, humility. Made a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Boy, my list was long. Okay, and you think, well, what did I really do to anybody? A lot of things. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others, because the whole amends process is for me to get back on track, to recognize the harm I did. And some people are like, I don't even want to hear it. Speak to the wrist, speak to the hand because the wrist is pissed, so I don't want to hear it. And that absolutely happens, because said it before, sorry. I was an apologist. I can't tell you how many times I said, I'm sorry, this will never happen again.
Part of that image.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And continue. This step 10, this group over here has a 10th and 11th step group. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. That's a big one. That is huge. It's huge in my personal relationship, because the people that I hurt the most, the ones that I unloaded on the most, the ones that were my character defects were absolutely the most apparent and manifested themselves was with the people that I loved the most. Okay, that's where it happened. So I made a lot of amends, and I promptly do it now, which is another exercise in humility. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. I prayed this morning sitting in here. I don't have, my concept of God is not well defined, and I can say that, but I'm a seeker. I search. When I got this invitation, I met Miranda, and I'm like, wow, Miranda. The name, You know, the Miranda warnings are big. The Fourth Amendment issue is big in my line of business. And here, you know, I'm talking to Miranda. I don't see these things as coincidences anymore. I see them as messages, you know. I try to determine what they mean. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of working these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And that's what it says. You know, they're in order for a reason, and it took me a long time to get through them, and I work them still to this day.
Just want to kind of wrap up the kind of end of the story of the Samson story. You know, he decides that, you know, he's not gonna obviously marry the woman who just married his best man. And part of, by the way, again, him breaking that vow that his mother had made was in killing people in a private battle. It wasn't even one that he could have claimed was for God. It was simply for himself because he was showing outward power and control. We see this whole thing happen where he kills 1,000 Philistines with a jawbone of a donkey. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this stuff up. This happens in the Bible. You should read it sometime. It's pretty good. So then he goes to judge Israel, but he meets this woman named Delilah, and while he's with Delilah, she, in his sleep, cuts his hair, and again, that was part of his vow. It was kind of seen that there was magic in his hair. It was the thing that had made Samson strong, or at least the image that he portrayed himself as, strong and in control and powerful. And she cuts his hair, and he ends up not being stronger any longer, and he gets taken into custody by the Philistines and has his eyes gouged out. So again, it's a pretty interesting, pretty riveting book. J.K. Rowling's got nothing on the Bible. And what happens is they bring Samson in at this great festival of sacrifices and praising their God. The people are chanting, "Our God has given victory over our enemy Samson." And when the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who killed so many of us is now in our power." And what's crazy is Samson is dealing with the consequences of what he did out of anger, trying to be in control and to have an image of power. Half drunk by now, the people demanded, "Bring Samson out so he can amuse us." So he was brought from the prison to amuse them. And then they had him stand between the pillars supporting the roof. Samson said to the young servant who was leading him by the hand, "Place my hands against the pillars." Remember, his eyes are gouged out. "That they hold up the temple, I want to rest against them." Now the temple was completely filled with people. All the Philistine rulers were there. And there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching as Samson amused them. Then Samson prayed. This is the only time, like in this story, where he starts to try to give something over to God. "Sovereign Lord, remember me again, O God. Please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back," still the wrong focus, "the Philistines for the loss of my 2 eyes." So yes, he gives something over to God, but it's still his will, not God's, which is what the AA steps highlight. Exactly. Then Samson put his hands on the 2 center pillars, and that held up the temple. Pushing against them with both hands, he prayed, let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down on the Philistines and rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than during his entire lifetime. It's a good book. And so then he's buried, and we move on to the next judge. But, you know, I'm thinking about Samson's story and how it could have been different. In fact, I was thinking through these steps, and as you know, you had mentioned rigorous honesty and how important that was. But as you were going through the steps, I thought that rigorous honesty maybe didn't really feel like enough. Like there's more than that, right? Because it's not enough to just admit that you're wrong, but you have to make amends. Oh, yeah. And it's not just enough to be rigorously honest. You actually have to be rigorously humble and rigorously vulnerable with those around you. Yes. And how would Samson's life have been different if he had been vulnerable? In fact, you see throughout these entire few chapters that are discussing Samson, he never goes to other people. Mm-hmm. When he's struggling, he always takes it into his own control, into his own power. He wants to maintain an image of power. And he wants to not look like a loser. And I thought, well, looks like Samson maybe has an outward appearance of success for most of the story while his life is falling apart. He loses the woman he loves, and then another woman he loves betrays him. How could Samson's life had changed if he had been vulnerable with others, if he had been vulnerable with God, if he had been vulnerable with himself, if he had been rigorously vulnerable? And I think for me, I just look at your life as an example. How would your life be different now if you hadn't made that decision 11 years ago and you hadn't been vulnerable with other people? And just, I think, you don't even know what the answer is, and neither do I, but you can guess it wouldn't look like it does now.
Yeah, I can safely and easily guess that it wouldn't look like it looks now. And I can tell you that I surrendered to alcohol before I surrendered to a power greater than myself, that I still refer to as God. I would have been dead. I'm pretty confident that the way that I was going, notwithstanding eating right, sometimes getting to the gym, but alcoholism is a progressive disease. And if you have it, it's going to get you. And if you continue to be active in it, it's going to kill you. I represent 10%. That's it. 90% of people addicted to alcohol or drugs die addicted, die in their addiction, die in active addiction. They die from their disease. So grace, why am I here? I don't know, but I do believe that service is going to be an important part of why I'm here. And before you say something, I just wanted to say about Samson. You know, it strikes me as you were talking, Samson maybe had some good qualities. Occasionally, he'd listen to God, and then he would go about his own business. And so there was this lack of internal consistency, this lack of harmony with what his faith was. Sometimes he had faith, sometimes he didn't have faith. They say in my program, you work the program 50%, you don't really get 50% of the results. It doesn't really kind of come to you that way. The whole idea of the program that I'm in is that I can live in harmony, that I can have peace, that I am no longer obsessed with trying to change the way I feel. I can remember one time when I was very drunk, I said to my wife, she goes, "Why?" And she stuck with me. I've been married 30 years, have a beautiful son. She says, "Why do you keep drinking with all these consequences? Why?" And it is mind-numbing to the person that is on the outside looking in. Look at you. Pitiful, incomprehensible, demoralization is the fate that I was, and the life that I was living in. And she's like, why? And I remember saying to her, I just want to be happy. She says to me, nobody's happy all the time. These are things that just kind of stuck with me. This idea that I can always be happy, that I can always be up, that I can always be good. I have to navigate life just like all of you have to navigate life. And the tools we get come from, they're spiritual tools. I really believe this, So, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, I think, we landed on rigorous honesty, and then we landed on rigorous vulnerability, but saying that over and over again doesn't really mean anything unless we're willing to enact it, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's what the 12 steps are. It's moving forward.
It's action.
And so I was also thinking about the story and how it's often taken. And, when I was first writing, I was writing this talk before I knew that we'd be talking on this day. I came up with the bottom line that God's strength can be seen in our sacrifice. And I thought maybe that was correct. But then as we were talking, actually, I think I said on the phone to you when we were on the phone this last week, and I said, Tom, I think I got it wrong, actually. I said, I don't think it has anything to do with the sacrifice, because if we think in terms of alcoholism, we think in terms of the disease that you struggle with, we think about we've all been in high school in an auditorium where they bring in someone's parents, a kid who died in a DUI accident. And those are really awful, terrible situations. And the parents are seeking to make an impact and make a change out of their kid's life. And when I was having that conversation with you, I thought, well, if it is a progressive, disease, it's not. Then if we're not just talking about just this one kid, but you only represent the 10%, 90% of people die and sacrifice to this disease. What if it's actually not at all about sacrifice, but what if you were rigorously vulnerable with others, with yourself, and with God? What if it would be God's strength is not seen in our sacrifice, but God's strength is seen in our service? Mm-hmm. And the fact that, yes, you did have to make sacrifices, but your sacrifice was service. Your sacrifice is service. And with this kid, this kid unnamed, I don't have a specific one in mind, who passed away and his parents are making an impact, what would his life have looked like if it wasn't simply that one sacrifice, but instead his life was given in service? And
that's that is the question that I ask, right? Why, is that the song Amazing Grace that always brings tears to my eyes? God save a wretch like me. Why am I here? Those are all these existential questions that I don't think I'm going to have an answer to. But one thing I can absolutely share with you and tell you that doing this kind of thing, where Drake asked me, I'm not necessarily the most comfortable, but then I thought, wait a second, this is service. This is something that I can do, that I have the opportunity to do, that I've been blessed and lucky and fortunate enough to be alive and to come in here and still be seeking and to share my vulnerability with all of you. My program, and I'll end with this, they talk about being anonymous. It is the cornerstone of the program because people have so much shame and guilt. I'm not anonymous. I spread the message. I speak to whoever needs to be spoken to, who asks me for help. And I can tell you that coming here today has meaning for me that goes way beyond just this hour that we've been sitting here. I'm not sure exactly what it is, all right? But I can tell you that the feeling I get from all of you, the feeling I got from how this whole thing started out, the feeling I get from Drake, working towards going down this path, this spiritual path, and working on this journey. I shared with him some comments before we met here today, and his intellectual honesty, the fact that he still has questions, that's vulnerability. He doesn't sit up there like some Catholic priest that I've known, okay, telling me the answer to things that they don't know the question is just faith, but there's actual dialogue. Yeah. And that's Drake sharing his vulnerability with me, and it changed me.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll give him a round of applause. Just in closing, we've been talking the last few weeks about what we're going to lean into as a church. Leaning into trusting God even when it's uncomfortable. Leaning into checking our own convictions rather than condemning the convictions of others. Embracing those who are different from us. And as I've been talking with Tom throughout this week, and as we're sitting here on this stage together and I'm listening to Tom be vulnerable, I realize where we're called to be as a church. When we're talking about God's strength being seen in our service, one, we are a service-driven church. We serve others, but two, we are a rigorously vulnerable church. Meaning that each and every week, you don't have to come in here with your best church smile on. Meaning that each and every week, when you struggle with something, you can text someone who's in the pew next to you, the seat next to you. If you're online right now and you are not connected with anybody, or you're listening to the podcast, you're not connected with anybody here, fill out that connect card and let us know you want to get connected. because we're a church that does life together, who's rigorously vulnerable together. Because if we're vulnerable with ourselves and we're vulnerable with others, our community, and we're vulnerable with God, then it's not just about sacrifice, it's about service. We give him another round of applause. Thank you for...
Thank you all. My privilege. My privilege.
Would you pray with me?
Yes.
God, I want to thank you for this morning, for this opportunity we've had to come together to learn a little bit more about what you'd have for us as a church and as individuals. God, we all have questions. We're all trying to follow you. We all struggle with image issues. We all struggle with all these things that Tom was talking about. God, we pray that you would drive us to give those things over to you. Drive us to be vulnerable with each other, vulnerable with you, God, vulnerable with ourselves. So then that way, God, if we're rigorously vulnerable, God, that you would use us not just for sacrifice, God, but for service. God, as we think about Samson's life and how it would have changed, what could you have done through him in the many more years he could have ruled over Israel had he not simply given his life in sacrifice, but had he lived to give it in service? God, we love you and we praise you. We ask all of this in your holy, your heavenly, your strong name. Amen.
Church, as a response to that message, would you rise as you're willing, as you're able, and sing a song of worship with us? Though my strength is weak, though my strength is weak, still you are strong, you're faithful to me. Your ways are true, you fail me not, you're faithful to me. In the morning you are faithful, in the evening you are faithful, in noonday you are faithful to me. Yeah. In the morning you are faithful, in the evening you are faithful, in the noonday you are faithful to me. You're faithful to the end. Merciful Spirit, thank you again for gathering us together and for showing us in each other, in others, in those around us, the grace that you have for us. We ask that you help us to keep our eyes open to the ways in which you present us opportunities to show that we are ready to give over our lives, our worries, our grievances over to you. Because it is in that moment of radical honesty and radical submission that we are able to fully see you and fully become your vision for us. All this we ask in your holy name, your heavenly, your strong name. Amen.
You know, thanks so much for sharing that, Tom. So I know I shared this with you once, but my mom is a recovering alcoholic, and she's been through the program. And one of the things that my mom has, and she's been sober for over a decade, which is amazing. But one of the things that she always tells me is she wishes that the church was more like AA, because there's just something about how inclusive and welcoming, and how, if you show up late to a meeting, in her group, they always say, you're always right on time. You're always right on time to a meeting, right? And I love that. And I think there's a lot that we can learn. There's a lot that we can learn from the program, I think, as a church, there's a lot that we can learn as humans, and there's a lot we can learn about how we can be better as people. And so thanks so much for sharing that. That was really, really powerful. Thank you. A couple things before we leave. I just want to let you know that next week, we are having a congregational meeting. That's a big fancy word. It just means we're getting together and we're going to be voting on some things that we're going to be doing for the next year. So it's like stuff like budget, our staffing, and just some of our bylaws and constitution and stuff. That stuff is available online. If you want to look at that stuff before the meeting, please talk to us. I think it's in the Facebook group, and there's a couple other places where you can find it. But we're going to have a meal after church before that meeting. And so we're going to get together, we're going to eat, and then we're going to do that. Now, some of you might be asking yourself, how do I know if I'm a part of the congregation? Well, here's the thing, is we don't do formal membership at Meizon. If you've been hanging out with us for a while and you feel like this is your home and you are investing of your time, your talent, and your treasure in this place, then we invite you to come and be part of that meeting, because it's just really good.
It'd be like 2 weeks if you feel like this is where you are.
Yeah. Just, be part of it. It's great. We love that you're a part of it. We love that you're here, and we want you to feel included. And so that is next week. Please come and join us. It's going to be our last week of the Losers series, so you don't want to miss it. We'll see you next week at 10:30.